She had always been too enthralled by being in the sky to notice. She started to reply, but a twig snapped out in the woods and she closed her mouth. It was probably nothing, but she turned in that direction, peering toward the trees. Were there campsites in that direction? She couldn't remember. The couple having sex in their tent had quieted down, and there weren't any lights on anywhere on the cliff top. The stars might be bright in the dark sky, but they did little to illuminate the mountainside. Another twig snapped, and Andie tensed. That had been closer. She tried to remember where exactly she had seen that flash. Was someone sneaking through the woods from that direction? "What is it?" Minji asked, sounding young and uncertain for the first time. She hadn't taken any time between college and entering her PhD program, so she was young, Andie reminded herself. Barely 24 and without experience being anything other than a student. Even with more life experience, Andie did not feel at ease. 2 women on a camping trip by themselves might be an appealing target if there were serial killers or rapists roaming the mountains. It was hard to imagine anyone coming all the way up here to partake in criminal activity. But she supposed the odds of some brute being caught out here would be slim too. "Let's get back in the car," Andie whispered. They didn't have any weapons along. She hadn't shot anything more deadly than a rubber band since leaving active duty. But they could lock the doors, honk the horn, and drive off if necessary. Navigating that Forest Service road in the dark might not be appealing, but she trusted she could do it to avoid itinerant criminals. "Are we leaving?" Minji reached for her telescope. A distant whisper escaped the trees. A man's whisper. Foliage rustled. Andie grabbed her friend's arm, propelling her toward the car. "Leave it. We'll worry about it in the morning." Knowing how expensive a piece of equipment that telescope was, Andie expected a protest, but Minji must have heard some of the sounds. She hustled toward their campsite without objecting. She tripped, pitching forward, but Andie kept her from falling. "Hang on," Minji whispered. "I have a flashlight." "Leave it off." Andie guided her along the route, glad there wasn't as much undergrowth tangling the forest floor on this, the drier side of the mountains. She wasn't glad, however, that they were 20 miles away from civilization, if the small town of Clay Elum could be called such. Those miles had taken over an hour to cover, thanks to all the dirt roads. She thought about calling out, trying to wake some of the other campers. Even if there were only 2 other cars out here, maybe mobilizing the owners would alarm whoever was skulking around out there. But she would be foolish crying out for help if she had heard nothing more than a couple of hikers returning late to camp. Very late. The last time she had checked her watch, it had been midnight. "Who's out there?" she called, trying to sound forceful rather than concerned. Anyone who had innocuous intentions should answer the call. She also hoped her voice would be loud enough to rouse the other campers without panicking anyone unnecessarily. More foliage rattled in the brush, closer than before. Nobody answered. Andie already had her keys in hand, and she thumbed the fob to unlock the Jeep. It was still over 20 yards away, making her wish they hadn't tramped so far in search of a patch of open sky. The dome light came on, brightening the area around the car enough to make out their tent, and someone behind the vehicle. A man. He darted away from the illumination and out of view. Andie faltered. Were the intruders already guarding the car? Setting a trap because they had known Andie and Minji would come this way? Minji must not have seen the figure, because she kept heading straight for the Jeep, running full out now, the wan yellow dome light like a beacon drawing her. Andie continued on, trying to think if she had anything that could be used as a weapon. She had a multi-tool, but she had used it to cut a rope when they had been setting up, and she had left it inside the tent. More figures moved about at the edge of the light. They had surrounded the car. 2 of them ran toward Minji. Andie had been about to veer toward the tent for her multi-tool, but she couldn't leave her friend to be attacked. She sprinted in that direction. Despite Andie's earlier admonition, Minji must have dug out her flash.